Good morning, everyone, and welcome again. I know that as we do a bit of housekeeping and our official introductions for today's webinar, some of you will be joining us, and hopefully you all are here to start at the start of our official presentations. So, of course, we are broadcasting from Trinidad and Tobago. It's a little after 9 a.m. here. I'm sure for some of you, your time zones may be a little different, but welcome all the same and a pleasant morning. My name is Tonya Watkins, and I am the Business Manager of Operations Innovation at ODYSSEY CONSULTinc. And I'm very pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, which we're hosting, and it's titled Business Essentials, Practical Approaches to Managing COVID-19 Impacts. So I know that some of you in our audience would be very familiar with us at ODYSSEY, having been in our workrooms, classrooms for various types of interventions and planning sessions, whether it's strategy, change, recruitment even, and all different dimensions. So great to have you with us again. Of course, under these circumstances, we're meeting virtually, but good to have you all the same. For those of you who may be new to ODYSSEY CONSULTinc, or ODYSSEY may be new to you, we are very happy to have you with us. And just a bit of background in terms of ODYSSEY CONSULTinc, we are an organizational development consulting firm, one of the region's premier and most established. We are actually in our 30th year of operations. And for us as an OD firm, really our emphasis is on helping organizations. And how we do that is with a real focus on developing planned approaches, holistic frameworks for ensuring that organizations have their strategy, their processes, their systems, and very importantly for us, their people aligned to give the kind of results that they need. So as I mentioned, we are here in Trinidad and Tobago, but certainly from our client network, our client reach, the interventions that we've conducted throughout the Caribbean and even in Central America in some zones, that certainly speaks to the expansive reach of our organization through the years. With us today, we have the full complement of our core consulting team, Mr. Anthony Watkins, more familiarly known to some perhaps as Tony Watkins, Mr. Sheldon Batiste, who brings quite a bit of HR and managerial expertise to our consulting practice, Mr. Adam Monserin, whose passion I can confidently say is rooted in strategy. And of course, that's complemented by his extensive work and training in ICT and a lot of other professional areas. Ms. Camille Loha, who is a qualified change management professional, and she too has worked extensively in the private sector in the areas of finance. As a complement to that team, also with us today is our business manager of our consulting practice, Ms. Neve Thomas, who many of you may have interacted with her from the client end, or typically by phone, but certainly a very familiar face and voice of the organization. So at ODYSSEY, a fundamental principle for us really is about partnership. And we have relied extensively on developing and building a very strong and robust system of resources, subject matter experts, whom we can call on depending on our client needs to ensure that whatever intervention we deliver, whatever resources are, that they are suited to our clients and that they meet the needs of our clients essentially. So with us today in presenting our framework, we have two of our legal experts, Mrs. Asha Watkins Monserin, who is a practicing attorney at law attached to Virtues Chambers. And her areas of practice include corporate, criminal, industrial relations, and civil litigation. She's also a legal consultant with ODYSSEY CONSULTinc. Additionally, we have Mr. Keith Scotland, who's a practicing attorney at law with over 24 years standing in Trinidad and Tobago. And his areas of expertise similarly include criminal, corporate, civil, IR, and family matters. So shifting our focus really to today's webinar. Many of us, all of us rather, are aware of the realities that we are facing, the many changes we have had to make on a personal level, whether it is on our lifestyle, the way we work, the way we interact, the way we socialize. And given that we are so familiar with those realities at an individual level, I am certain that we are also aware of the impacts on our organizations. It continues to shift things. It continues to make things very uneasy and unstable for many of us. So, given our extensive work, we have done quite a bit of work in terms of helping organizations through change, through transformation, through various other types of challenges. Of course, none like COVID, but we have learned quite a bit, and we have developed a lot of tools and practices that we think would be useful to organizations and the people in those organizations. So for today's webinar, we really would like to introduce some of the immediate areas of action and decision making that organizations must consider. Must. It is imperative, because just like we have had to decide quickly, make changes to the way we work, whether it is our physical location and otherwise, so too for organizations. But it is not just about making quick shifts. It is about making changes and decisions that will be sustainable, even in the midst of all the unknowns and all the uncertainty and challenges that this pandemic has brought. So today's webinar will have three thematic areas of focus, if I can call them that. And so our various presenters, members of our team, will be speaking to various dimensions of each of those themes. So as we shift into that, I'll hand over to our first presenter. But a bit of housekeeping. I know I've seen a couple hands raised, but essentially for today's webinar, we would encourage you to use the chat window, share your feedback as the presentations go along, any questions. We expect that at the end of each segment or major presentation area that we should have a couple minutes for a question or two. So Camille, who will be moderating and taking a look at those questions and your feedback in the chat window, will liaise with our presenters following their presentations to help so that they can provide you with some feedback on some of the questions that you may pose. So I'm now going to invite my colleague, Adam Monserin. I'm going to hand over to him, and he's going to start off and share with us an overview in terms of our current business context. Adam?
Morning, Tonia, thank you. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar that we hope will be very insightful and valuable for all participating. Just very briefly, before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the discussion, we have to recognize that the challenges and the disruption and even the crisis that has been caused by this pandemic has magnified a couple of things for businesses. And one of the things that it has really magnified is the level of our interconnectedness. We have become so drastically aware of how connected we are as a people with each other, with our systems, with our processes, with our technology. And this magnification of our super connected world can be seen by the level of disruption that this one major event has had. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted almost every dimension of our personal and professional lives. Areas such as the air quality, areas such as global industries, food production, supply chains, local and international politics, how we worship, how we learn from an educational perspective, how we interact with our family members. What this has done has brought to the fore a reality for all businesses that we live and operate within a system. And so as organizations are seeking to address the challenges and the crisis, the response cannot be isolated. The response must reflect our connectedness. So the response must be a systemic response. This is at the heart of what we will be talking about this morning. You cannot afford as an organization or as an individual to respond to the challenges that you are facing in a knee-jerk way. You must look at the decisions that you are making in the context of the system that you're operating in. We know that organizations today are struggling with answering two major questions. The first major question is, how am I going to survive? So financial sustainability is critical, and decisions that relate to financial sustainability are being made on a daily basis. As supply chains are disrupted, as demand drops, as resources become limited, organizations are turning towards many different solutions, such as remote working, adjusting roles and responsibilities, reducing the workforce size, and many, many others. Re-engineering, becoming more lean. These are all viable solutions. What we are saying is that to look at these viable solutions, it must be placed within the context of a systemic view. But the other side of the coin that organizations are looking at today is not just survival, but how do I succeed? How do I come out of this in a position that allows me to ramp up, to improve at the most efficient way? And so the other side of the coin looks at how organizations seeking to maintain customer relationships, engage staff, motivate staff, and support members of its team, ensure that suppliers and other key stakeholders are connected and moving forward to a point where things will get better. Because things will get better. Not in the same way, but organizations have to be prepared once they start to get better, to be ready and able to move things forward. So today, we're going to be looking at the changes that organizations are considering, given the context, given the impact, but most importantly, given our connectiveness. And what we are seeing at ODYSSEY, any decision that's being made must be looked at or should be looked at in the context of three major areas. The first major area is the business organization. Any decision that's being made must be looked at in accordance with the dimensions under this area, under this dimension. And we will get into what those are. Secondly, any decision that's being made must be made within the context of human resource management best practices. And thirdly, and very importantly, any decision that's being made must be looked at in the context of legal considerations. Asher and Keith will tell you that many decisions being made today have short-term benefits in terms of cost reduction, but may in fact, because of improper process and practice, result in significant legal costs, even in the short to medium term. So our approach is comprehensive, it's systematic, and this is what we're recommending to you today. We will get into some of the details, and to start that process off, I would like to invite Mr. Anthony Watkins to share with us his perspective on the business and organization issues.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very good to have you on board with us. And of course, what we want to do is to get right into some very specific aspects of how our organizations function. Strategy is critical, and I'm sure all of us have been involved in defining and shaping strategy. What we're saying though and recommending for this time is strategy for situational relevance. Lots of things have changed. Assumptions are out of the window, and what we thought to be true is no longer true. So what we really require is a situation, we're in a situation that calls us to revisit the plans that we have made and revisit them in terms of what kind of immediacy do we have in those plans? What kinds of relevance to today's situation? And importantly, how are they related to where we are going in the future? The other issue, while we want to look at the plans and we're suggesting that we do that, and it's an imperative for us now, is that we really have to revisit, more importantly, the planning process. How frequently do we look at what's happening around us? How responsive are we? How analytical are we? And how do we connect the dots in terms of what's happening in this super connected world? And importantly, what is the level of our flexibility in adjusting to an evolving situation? Some critical things we have to do, and we're recommending these to you in the first instance, is that we have to engage and shorten our planning timeframes. We have to ramp up on our environmental scanning. We have to be looking out there more frequently and looking further and looking for some different things. We have to increase the frequency of revisiting that planning and decision making. We need to come back to this more and more frequently. And as we do that, expand the scope of our planning to include a focus on risk management and business continuity. We have thrown these terms around, but have we truly addressed some of those? We have to challenge our assumptions. At the root of our decisions are our assumptions. What is the information that we're getting? What are the options we're generating? And what is our focus? And to do that, we may need to reconfigure and establish some particular processes within the organization. And that is in terms of developing our strategy for situational relevance that ODYSSEY is prepared to work with you at. The thing is, how can you do those things? What does it take? And just as importantly, what would happen if you did not engage in a new way of strategy for situational relevance? The second key issue in our organizations is, of course, leadership. And we're saying leadership in terms of people, people, and people. Leadership in times like this requires that we reflect on how we have been leading. Many of us lead almost on autopilot. We don't take too much reflection and thought about ourselves, but it's about the results and where the organization is going. Listen to what's happening in the COVID situation. Our people are hurting. Our bottom line is hurting. Our people are scared, they are challenged, they are uncertain, and they're experiencing loss. For some of them, dreams and opportunities are dying, and the future might be fading into nothingness. The distancing that we engage in is impacting our sense of belongingness, togetherness, and connectedness. So the question for leaders and leading people at this time is, where is the direction? Who provides the hope? Who provides the possibility? Where does the guidance come from? And we are saying in this situation that we have to understand and acknowledge what we as leaders are experiencing and engage in self-care. We need to be the best that we can be and bring that best to the table. We also have to pause and ask ourselves, what are our people experiencing? Because our people are going through all kinds of things, and it's necessary for us to create the space to lead them through this period. What that requires is that we observe, and observe with our eyes, with our ears, with our minds, with our hearts, connect, and very importantly, support our people through this period. It means, therefore, that we have to ramp up on building community, our virtual community and our disrupted community. We talked for many years about teamwork, but how do we as leaders bring our people together, get them to work in teams, to trust one another, to engage with one another so that they can deliver for themselves and for the organization? How we lead on these people issues will have major consequences. The question is, can we continue to lead in the ways in which we have been leading? Leadership, of course, is not just about people. It's also about leading through a difficult time, through significant turbulence and change. Leading, even in calm seas, was a challenge. Leading today in this convulsive environment will test even the most resilient leaders. What does it require? It requires sound self-management, stable people engagement skills. It's about us and it's about the people. But it also requires that we have superior management of the complexities of change, flexible planning and strategizing for situational relevance, being nimble, being agile, even as we change, and focusing very much on the future beyond the turbulence. So what are some tips? We need to seek and seize the opportunities because they are there. We have to seize the opportunities inherent in the situation. That requires a different mindset from us. And we have to blend our focus on the multiple transitions that are inherent in change and transformation. We have to work with our people through the psychosocial transitions, the emotions, the attitudes, the behaviors, how we see ourselves. We have to be able to manage the operational changes, new roles, new processes, working from home, new configurations, and very, very importantly, how do we seize the opportunity to reshape and redefine the culture of our organization? The cultural transition is key because it is that space in which people will be working in this era post-COVID. So the questions are we doing what is required of us as leaders in these turbulent times? What are the issues? What are the opportunities that we might be missing? And how is all of this impacting our people, the organization, its results, and our collective futures? At this point, let me hand over to Adam to continue the piece around the business and organization themes.
Thank you. So the business and organization side of the equation focuses on planning differently, leading differently, and managing change differently. But it also focuses very, very differently on how the organization must operate. So on the bottom half of the graphic, you would see three very, very important focus areas that organizations must begin to address if you haven't started to do so already. The first thing is that you must start to address the empowering of your digital workforce. The way that people work have changed. It's not changing. It has changed and it will continue to escalate in terms of this change. Persons will more and more, as we even move out of COVID, be required to work remotely, collaborate remotely, enable mobile solutions of engaging not only with their colleagues, but with customers and suppliers. And the question here is, what are you doing from the business perspective to empower your digital workforce? What are the solutions that you have in place to enable your employees, your member of staff, to access information and data remotely and in a mobile way? Have you started to transition towards cloud solutions to make operations seamless wherever employees are, wherever members of staff are? And of course, are you strengthening your security and your cyber security as you move towards empowering this digital workforce? Secondly, at this point in time, most of all organizations have realized that waste is a terrible thing and that the organization must become more and more efficient at creating value. This is the time for the organization to look at how it's creating value, evaluate its value chain elements, remove waste, look at how we've been doing things and challenge it from a very, very rigorous place and ask ourselves, are these things creating value for our customers, for our employees, and for our other stakeholders? That analysis has to happen now. Organizations that have gone into this crisis should not come out of it in the same mood. This is the time to take advantage of the crisis, to re-engineer how we create value. A lot of this will come from automation by utilizing and applying technology in areas that can, and then strategically deploying human resources, particularly to key customer touchpoints, where it creates most value. And then the third point is to improve governance and decision-making. Everyone, I'm sure, will agree that decision-making has become critical at this point in time. It's critical because there is ambiguity, there is shortage of information, and information is changing almost on a daily basis. As a result, organizations must strengthen their ability to make decisions in this point in time. No longer is there wiggle room for decisions that may result in losses. Decisions must be almost surgical at a time of uncertainty. And so this is the time for you in your organization to become more and more focused on data and information, using tools and technologies that will enable you to focus on deriving business intelligence and analyzing information on your customers, on your employees and stakeholders, and involving customers, employees, and stakeholders in rapid decision-making processes. These three areas complement the change that's required in terms of planning, leadership, and change management to really focus on what organizations must do at this point in time from a business perspective. We will pause here. And Camille, I'm not sure if you have any questions that you want to raise. We can probably take a couple on this dimension of our approach.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Adam. Just to share some of what has come up on the chat, some of the questions pertain to segments that would be coming up as part of our presentation. So far, we have a point noted. Someone is interested on a transition from a pre-COVID contract arrangement with clients to what would be a sustainable arrangement. So that's a topic that has come up. The topic of treatment of leave from a legal, IR, HR perspective. The issue of trust as a key component moving forward in a post-COVID environment. And someone is interested in solutions for the service environment, particularly moving forward. So those are some of the topics that have come up in the discussion so far. So I'm not sure if you will be able to treat with any of those at this time.
So definitely we will treat with the legal questions as we enter the legal segment. And certainly Sheldon will be happy to treat with the HR questions. Mr. Watkins, I'm not too sure whether you want to speak to anything to do with trust as a fundamental.
Yes, let me take the piece on trust. And in a lot of ways, trust comes out of our entry into uncertain situations and the outcomes that we experience. So, I mean, we're going to learn to trust people when we take a risk. This situation is absolutely unknown. So there's a lot of risk taking place. So we're asking people to work from home, to do different things. We're asking the employers to do some things differently, to give us their word and hope that things will come out. And the critical issue in terms of developing trust is when people take risks, when there are chances, when there's some danger, what is the quality of the outcomes that people experience? So we'd want to suggest that in a work situation, if a risk is taken, if somebody takes your word at it, what is the outcome? How do we create an outcome that says to them, yes, that risk was worth it, and I haven't been beaten over the head because I've taken this risk? A lot more that we can do on the issue of building trust. And as we go through in terms of some of the follow-up webinars, we'll spend some time on those kinds of things.
I just wanted to note that there's one question relating to, particularly for small and medium businesses, accessing the e-tools that will be required, particularly in empowering the digital workforce, creating more value and more effective decision-making. This is an area that definitely challenges not only small and medium businesses, but large businesses, because many organizations come to the table of addressing these issues from a technology perspective. But we believe that it has to be led from a business perspective. What does the business need? What are the business requirements? And then translate those to the plethora of technology tools that are available. And we are able to sift through that ecosystem to really get to a surgical point of what the business needs and then address those businesses with key technology tools and processes. Yeah. So good points. Thank you for your questions. We are going to move from the business and organizations dimension of our approach to the human resource management dimension of our approach. And to do that, I invite my colleague, Mr. Sheldon Batiste, to share with us.
Thank you, Adam, and welcome to everyone. Adam and Anthony really gave us excellent context within which we must change and adjust and move to the future. The implications are significant as they involve human resource management. And in fact, the issues are not just about COVID-19, they are also macroeconomic in terms of how they present an issue for us. They are really giving us an opportunity to look at this situation, not just as a crisis and conundrum, but also as an opportunity. Maybe we really have the opportunity now, and we should seize that opportunity to change some areas of human resource management that were not working well anyway. Maybe we should just throw them out. This really might be an opportunity for us. Let's seize that opportunity, and we are going to take the opportunity now and beyond to talk about that. In many ways, what we've been doing in human resource management sometimes was really to get caught up in the means of human resource management, sometimes forgetting its ends. Isn't human resource management really to facilitate an end of achieving business success and an end of achieving business results? And then if it is to do that, what am I to do now as I move ahead and going forward that will allow my organization to sustain highest levels of productivity and achieve its business priorities? We've heard the concept of systemic throughout our discussion so far. And I just want to say that this concept of systemic works really well in terms of us addressing the human resource management implications. Our efficacy in terms of what we do from a human resource management place must speak to how we can interconnect some major themes that we've been discussing this morning. How we interconnect the issues of organizational and strategic issues with leadership, with resource management, with human resource management, and of course, the significant nexus with human resource management and legal and industrial relations implications and issues. So let's talk about the systemic approach to human resource management specifically. And when we looked at it, we saw that there are two major questions that we must address from a human resource management place right now. One of those questions, and if we can describe it, perhaps let's talk about it as a cluster, is really what are the human resource management implications of remote work? And the second major cluster are what are the human resource management implications of downsizing as we move forward? Let's talk about the human resource management implications of remote work. And we're going to talk about it from varying themes within that particular element. Work planning, assignment, and work delivery, very much at the fundamental level. Have you worked out the best approach right now to assigning work remotely? Is that being done in an ad hoc way? Are you ensuring that as you assign the work, it can be delivered on time and with the highest quality? Do your managers even know how to lead teams in that way, in that remote way? And if I go a little bit beyond, have you evaluated which roles right now need to be physically on site or intermittent and which don't need to be? Not just now, but post-COVID. We really have to take the opportunity to communicate our work assignments in such a way that they are easily understood, they can be tracked, and they are target-oriented. Look at it again. And don't assume your managers and supervisors are all at the same levels of comfort with work assignments that are remote and reporting. Communicate and train where necessary. Let's talk about another element in terms of the HR implications of remote work, and that is managing and measuring performance and delivery. For a long time now, many of us have been unhappy with how performance management works. Maybe now is the time for us to throw out those traditional performance management systems, or certainly to rework them, because they have to be reworked to facilitate remote and intermittent work. Take this opportunity now to revise your concept and your performance standards and ensure that they are relevant and they are aligned to the new requirements of your organization. The new requirements now and where the business model may carry it further. And find a way to compartmentalize those performance standards so that they're easier to deliver and they're easier to track. Leverage on some of the technology that we have available now to ensure that performance management should do what it was supposed to do anyway, which was to ensure that we have increased communication, increased feedback, and increased coaching. Seize this opportunity now to improve or perhaps to introduce self-reporting Don't use self-reporting in an ad hoc way. Let's use the opportunity now to do it in a more structured way. And take the opportunity to review the links between the achievement of our performance standards and targets and some predetermined incentives. Sounds like things that we should have been doing anyway. We have the opportunity to do it now. Let's talk about the structure of the jobs that we have. This even the concept of that will certainly have to be revisited. That traditional concept of job descriptions and job specifications really may not even be relevant again. We need new work arrangements right now. People are working remotely, intermittently, and sometimes in some kind of hybrid mix. We have the opportunity to try and be more flexible and more fluid. So those increases their levels of engagement, but may move away from a formal structured job description that the individual had and still ensure that I can in fact get the highest levels of productivity. Let's talk a little bit about benefits and reward administration. And let's talk about some fundamentals here. Revising leave administration, a real issue that in fact perhaps was the first issue we had to deal with here. What is the impact on leave administration in your place at this time? And what can you and should you do? Even as we rush to use our leave balances and send our employees on leave, stop, think about it. Are you considering only the short-term gains? Are you considering the impact on the long-term? Be transparent, be open and honest in your discussions. And as you'd find throughout all that we are discussing here, talk. It's a significant element of how we move forward with our employees in a level of partnership, and it considers the area of trust in a significant way. Let's talk a little bit about the pay and compensation issues. The traditional approach to basic compensation also has to be revisited. We really can't be paying using 173.33 hours per month as the basis of which we pay. Our people are not there with us. Is it really an 8-hour day still? Should we not revise our compensation systems now to reward delivery rather than completion of work hours? And what might be the industrial relations legal implications there? And there may be, but certainly we can adjust this. We have an opportunity to change the way that we pay people and to compensate in such a way that it drives increased performance. And what about benefits administration? How are you sustaining your pension, gratuity, and medical plans? And if your financial obligations are significant where they may need adjustment, am I ensuring that I am talking to the right people to get there? Am I engaging the key stakeholders, including, first of all, my employees, the people who might be my employee representatives, and certainly the providers of those pension and medical plans? But even as we consider that, have you looked at whether your medical plan right now adequately provides for mental wellness and counseling? A significant part of what the employees may be going through right now and will go through for some time. Even as I talk about that, let's talk about another major area here, and that is employee engagement and support. How have you managed all the relevant HSE issues right now? Can you answer that question honestly? What have you done right now for the people who are on site? Have you considered all the risks? Have you communicated to them? Have you communicated to those who may have to come on site now and then in an intermittent way? And if you're speaking about possibly reopening, what must you do? What must we do to reopen? How are we managing the mental health of our employees that are in an uncertain place right now? And how will we manage it going forward? What more can we do to support our employees through this area? How will you keep your employees as we go forward and teams engaged? And what are the new rules of internal communication? We may have to find a way to structure our virtual meetings in a particular way so that they are more effective. Again, this concept speaks to the issue of trust. Be proactive, empathetic, clear, and consistent with your communications. The major cluster that we spoke of, again, concern the HRM implications of downsizing. And really this concept really goes smack bang into some areas of industrial relations and some legal considerations. But first of all, have we considered the issues of our workforce and pragmatic workforce planning? Are we reevaluating positions that we have right now to ensure that we in fact have the positions now and in the future that are critical for our business models? Because your business model will probably change. Which positions need to be retooled and upskilled? Which positions will become redundant? And can you legally reduce your workforce? And we'll talk about that, and we're going to ask Asha and Keith to talk about that. Can I revise my employment contracts? How much leeway do I have? And again, we'll talk about that in our IR considerations. Along the way, consider that as we move, this concept of discussion and sharing and collaboration is key. And astute discussions among employers and unions and employees and pension plan providers and so on is really going to become more and more important. Again, as we go through the concepts and actualize some of the issues in terms of human resource management, we need to balance empathy with our considerations of business continuity and our considerations of business success. And I invite some questions.
Okay, wonderful contribution, Sheldon. So many things coming up in this segment for consideration. The topic of the value of the remote workforce and advantages of working from home. How can this arrangement work for both the employee and the employer? Change in the culture to the work from home environment. It's tough in these times, in these circumstances. Working from home shift from busy looking or looking busy to output and delivery. A specific question on what are some of the tools available and that would be suited for this. Legal implications around work from home, from data loss and infrastructure, employment contract implications regarding selling one's time and services to more than one employer. So these are some of the items that have come up for discussions. I'm not sure which angle or what you would like to treat with at this time.
Sure. Camille, can I just hear the first issue that you raised?
The first issue okay. I believe it was the value of remote, the remote working arrangement, the advantages of working from home, and how this can work for both the employer and the employee.
Sure.
In terms of this new arrangement.
And maybe I will deal with that first issue. The first issue speaks to really how we can maximize what is a situation that we have to deal with. And a lot of the research indicates that, in fact, you may get more productivity from the employee who might be in a remote environment if you provide a particular environment for that to happen. And you find that we can interconnect a lot of what we discussed. So the employee who is remote, you need to be able to provide the same elements and perhaps accentuate them of assignment of work, and keeping in contact with that employee. You have an opportunity now to guide them, but give them assignments that they can actually deliver at a particular time. Ensure that they have the guidance in terms of what it is you want them to do. Keep in contact with them, engage them, and ensure that they are clear on what the deliverable is. You are not checking the employee every half an hour to see that they are on a computer or they are doing some level of research. Your concern is that they understand what they have to do and that they can do it and deliver it. And you provide coaching and feedback there. Camille?
Hi, yes, Sheldon. Okay, so let's see. Let me give you one more in terms of what we have noted here. The issue of these changes in a highly unionized environment. I think that that is a key one and one that is critical to many of our stakeholders. So if you can take that one, thank you.
Yeah, there's a defining concept that must speak to how we deal with the new arrangements, and one might call that defining concept collaboration. We might talk about it more as a partnership. Many of these words, we've used them in a very conceptual, theoretical way. Be sure that for us to move forward, we have to talk in a different way. This can't be an adversarial discussion, particularly where you have a recognized majority union. We have to have conversation, and even when they don't, we have to have conversations with our employees and their representatives. In some cases, they may be informal leaders that are open and transparent, where our employees or their unions understand very clearly the economic situation of the organization, because they are living here, they are part of it. This is not a time for hiding. This is not a time for using some covert strategies. Let's be sure everyone understands this and that we move forward together. This is an opportunity for us to revisit again some of those conceptual models of partnership and collaboration, understanding the legislative boundaries and understanding the industrial relations areas, even as we continue to have those kinds of conversations. It's not a negotiation in the standard sense. So I will pass it on now to, as I spoke about that, to Keith and Asha to talk about our industrial relations and legal issues.
Thank you very much, Sheldon. Good morning, everyone. The Industrial Court has stated that it may have to deal with a deluge of matters arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect in the workplace. And of course, this sentiment is also being echoed by the Ministry of Labor. In fact, the President of the Industrial Court, Her Honor Deborah Thomas Felix, has recently stated, and I will quote, "Although there is a global pandemic, there must be respect for all human rights and the rule of law, including the respect of fundamental principles and rights at work and international labor standards. The fact that there is a crisis does not remove workers' rights. I wish to urge the social partners to promote robust social dialogue, consultation, and cooperation at the workplace." And I end quote. Now, the court is plainly telling us where its mind is at and what is going to be required of us. And we cannot ignore this, not at this time, because despite the pandemic, despite the complete upheaval in all business places, at the end of the day, business must go on, and the relationships between employers and employees must continue in whatever way, form, or fashion going forward. Now, with this introductory session, we will be touching briefly on some of the burning issues being faced by businesses in the moment, and that would include reductions in the workforce, a very pressing issue, as well as adjustments to major terms and conditions of employment. Now, as we go forward, we must keep in mind that we are guided by certain things. Legally, industrial relations-wise, it's the various legislation that we have to deal with, whether it's the Industrial Relations Act, the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act, all of the other benefits acts that are there in place for employees. We also have to keep in mind and bear in mind the common law, the case law that has developed, as well as, of course, the principles and practices of good industrial relations. So let me now hand you over to Mr. Keith Scotland, who will take you through the various issues that we'll be raising today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Asha. The note from the President of the Industrial Court is very significant, because what it does is that it tells us as employers that we are indeed guided, notwithstanding this pandemic, by the principles and practices of good industrial relations. And in any event, whatever happens now, what the President is saying is that it's going to end up before the court. And briefly, I remember doing a major matter with a company. We were down in Cara Suites, and I thought that they were treating the worker poorly. So much so that I may have said something that I should not have said to a witness who was in the box. Of course, Asha and all my other juniors said he didn't say that. But now we are at the industrial court, and the company is facing not hundreds of thousands, millions, because they did not treat the worker fairly. The first issue of fairness will attach itself to the decision that the companies would have to make of the reduction possible reduction of the workforce. If that arises, and with this pandemic, it is a real possibility, you have to do it legally. We will be able, and we will tell you that the first port of call may very well be retrenchment. And if you are going that way, you must adhere to the strict regulations of the Retrenchment, Severance, and Benefits Act. That, of course, will be colored by whether or not your environment is unionized or non-unionized, and whether there's a recognized majority trade union and a collective agreement, which you will have to follow to the spirit if you are intending to follow or to adopt that route. That's the first port of call. It may be that you will not, or your organization might decide, as some have, that we will not go to the strict tenets of the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act, but we would want to offer VSEP. If you are doing that, there are also rules and regulations in the common law that would attract itself to this course of action. The main feature of VSEP is that it must be voluntary, meaning there must be some agreement, bilateral agreement between the employee and the employer before it becomes a reality. Also, you would have to examine what is being offered to the worker must be south of all deductions, statutory increments, statutory payments that the worker will make. In other words, you must not give them a figure for voluntary separation and then say, oh, we will now come and subtract taxes. It may be that the company may want to look at another option, layoff, temporary layoff. You would need guidance on that because the law as espoused by the courts state that a temporary layoff, by the very nature of its nomenclature, is temporary and should not go beyond 3 months. It can go beyond 3 months, but that must be with the consent of the worker. So a company is empowered in the common law under these circumstances to lay off temporarily, but it could only be for 3 months. Once it crosses 3 months, it does not fall into the category of temporary. Another option that is very live and very relevant now may be a general reduction of work time and wages. Now, that has several legal implications. People in HR, you would know that some contracts guarantee workers a minimum amount of hours per week. In this case, however, where those hours, the company itself does not have clients that will be able to fill those work hours, but you have a contract saying the worker must work those hours, what happens? It cannot be that the company takes a unilateral decision, because that would mean in some way an alteration and an amendment to the contract of employment. What we say to you is this: a term of your contract of employment, a term is bilateral. It is negotiated between worker and employer. Another aspect of a term, and let me give you an example of a term of your employment may be the amount of vacation leave you take. A condition of your employment is unilateral, meaning that is determined exclusively by the employer. So for example, even though a term will be that I am entitled to 2 weeks vacation leave, when I proceed on that vacation leave depends on when I do my application to my employer and the employer's acceding to my request for vacation leave. And that is indeed a condition of your contract of employment. You will then have to consider major terms and conditions and understand what you can change unilaterally and what needs to be bilaterally negotiated with the employee, even in these circumstances. Other issues that arises would be the revising and revisiting of leave administration. I know, for example, some employers are negotiating with employees for them to take their vacation leave at this time. What happens when that runs out? What happens to other leave if the worker is entitled to take it and that runs out? These are issues that need to be reviewed. The employment contract now, it is not business as usual, but remember what the president said. The learned president indicated that even though it is not business as usual, when we approach the contract of employment, we would want to do so in keeping with principles and practices of good industrial relations. What happens to probationary periods? What happens to performance appraisals? All of these are issues that need to be considered in the legal context. I want to end by saying this. In these unprecedented times, a question that must pose itself to every HR mind is, what is the position of the contract of employment that the worker and the company sign? One approach could be that the contract is frustrated and meaning comes to an end. That approach will not receive a warm reception from the industrial court. Another approach may very well be that the contract is suspended and now needs to be amended with a collaborative effort. I think that that approach will be more in keeping with the industrial court, and I urge companies to remember that whatever happens in this unprecedented time will sometime find its way before the industrial court. I now will take some questions.
Certainly. Thank you so much. We have a few questions here regarding the legal implications.
Yes.
One such question surrounds the issue of what will be the legal implications of working from home as relates to data loss and infrastructure. So in terms of the legal considerations where that is concerned, let's see, what else do we have here?
The legal implications working from home as it relates to?
It relates to data loss and infrastructure.
I can tell you that it brings us to an issue as to where is the workplace. Now, if your workplace is at home, it does not change the fact that certain rights and responsibilities attend to the employee and the employer, even in those circumstances. So the same rules of engagement that would apply as if you are working at a central site will, by and large, as far as is reasonably practicable, apply when you're working from home. And that applies to data loss also. It also applies to infrastructure in a limited form, because let me give you one example. If, for example, an employee is working from home and slips and falls in his or her kitchen, you will not be able to sue the employer for that, would you? Although you're working from home. So it will be applied, what I'm saying, it will be applied as far as is reasonably practicable across the board in the circumstances, in the individual circumstances of each case.
Sure. And we have one more question coming from someone who's in the space of an employee who is concerned about being sent on assignments and not being assignments on the outside and not being comfortable as a result of the current situation with COVID-19. So this person is interested in understanding what would be their rights, or
your right is to say no. Listen, and that right accrues both at common law and under OSH. Now remember, OSH is not suspended, but in fact my view is, my respectful view is, OSH is augmented. For example, your employer cannot tell you, go outside and work, but I'm not going to supply you with your PPEs, which now would be your mask, if you're going to touch, gloves, sanitizers. These are now essential tools and PPEs, which if the worker is not provided with it, you're entitled to say no, because it places your life and limb in jeopardy. Full stop.
And it would also be interesting to know whether or not that assignment is from a company that is considered to be an essential service at this time or not. I'm going to have to assume that if the person is being sent out on an assignment, it would fall in the bracket of
essential. If it's not an essential service, you aren't working until next week, at least outside.
Thank you so much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, so much rich discussion at this time. We have many questions and many issues to treat with. What would happen now is that we are inviting you to participate in a quick poll so we can get a sense of some of the areas that would be of interest to you and that you would like to see in topics moving forward. So we are now about to launch the poll. So we invite you to participate in that and to submit your answers. And while you are participating in the poll, we would have heard many things today, many things to consider, but also many opportunities to be seized as we all continue to navigate the current circumstances and this time which we all face. So we at Odyssey, we stand ready to partner with you and to support you in the navigation of what is happening in and around us, to share with you our plans and some of what we would be doing to keep the conversations going and to keep the work moving. I now invite our business manager, consulting practice, to share some information with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, presenters. But more importantly, we thank you for choosing to spend this time with us and hope that the presentations have solidified the need to ensure that you move with urgency, folks, and take a systemic approach to business continuity. ODYSSEY Consulting has the expertise and experience in all areas of organizational development and can continue to partner with you and your organizations to deliver solutions in this critical COVID-19 context and beyond. Later today, you will receive a summary of the presentation, so you can expect to receive that email with that, as well as further details of our full Business Essential webinar series. And please note that each element will be rolled out as a unique webinar. So the topics, dates, etc., and how you can register for those sessions will be included in that email sent to you a little later today. But before you leave, we would like to know going forward what would work best for you regarding the various modalities. So for example, are you interested in public webinars? Some of you are here today representing your organization, and you may wish for us to conduct in-company webinars for your organization, or design customized online working sessions for various teams or departments within your organization. Or you may wish to access our virtual consultations to address some of your organizational issues and concerns. So please just take a few seconds and complete the poll that is on your screen at the moment to let us know your preference. And please note, you may select more than one modality. Thank you very much. In closing, if you have additional questions or didn't type your question during today's webinar, please feel free to email us. The address will soon be on the screen. This has been a powerful little more than 45 minutes. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we look forward to your participation at the upcoming Business Essential webinar series, or hearing from you to arrange a virtual consultation. Stay safe, folks, and thanks again.